HOA Karen attacked my dying heartsick 8-year-old daughter in court. Karen demanded that I paint my house immediately, or face her in court. My precious daughter has a serious heart condition that could kill her at any moment. Her life-saving medicine costs thousands of dollars every single month. During the court hearing, this woman actually attacked my sick child right there in front of the judge. My daughter collapsed on the courtroom floor. Her lips turned a frightening shade of blue. Her fragile heart was failing right before my eyes. Then, exactly 3 minutes later, military police officers stormed through those heavy courtroom doors. And justice finally arrived in a way nobody could have predicted. Before you hear this full story, please comment below and tell me which country you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more amazing true stories like this one. My name is David Martinez. I'm a single father doing everything I possibly can to keep my daughter alive. I work 2 completely separate jobs every single day of the week. My first job is at a manufacturing factory from 6 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Then I rush to my second job at a retail store, where I work from 4 in the evening all the way until midnight. I barely sleep anymore. Most nights, I'm lucky if I get 4 or maybe 5 hours of sleep total. My body is exhausted all the time. My back hurts, my feet hurt, everything hurts. But I keep going. I keep pushing myself beyond what I thought was humanly possible. I do all of this for one reason, and one reason only. My daughter Emma needs me to survive. I do this because I made a sacred promise to protect her and keep her alive, no matter what it takes. Emma is 8 years old. She has a very serious heart condition that she's had since the day she was born. The doctors use a complicated medical term for it. They call it a congenital heart defect. What this means in simple terms is that Emma's heart did not develop properly before she was born. Her heart is weak and fragile in ways that most people's hearts aren't. Sometimes Emma's heart beats far too fast, so incredibly fast that her small body just cannot keep up with it. Sometimes her heart skips a beat completely, leaving frightening gaps in its rhythm. Sometimes she suddenly cannot breathe properly because her struggling heart is working so desperately hard just to pump blood through her tiny body. She gets tired and exhausted so very easily. Just playing with other children for a few minutes makes her completely worn out and breathless. She needs expensive medicine every single day just to keep her alive and functioning. Without her daily medicine, she could suffer a serious, potentially fatal heart attack at any moment. Each and every month, Emma's medical bills cost well over $3,000. In some particularly difficult months, they reach $4,000 or even $5,000. This is just for her prescription medicine, her frequent doctor visits, her regular hospital checkups, and the special medical equipment she needs to monitor her condition. $3,000 every single month. That's often more than I make working both of my jobs combined in some months. I'm always playing catch up with the bills. I'm always one emergency away from complete financial disaster. My wife, Sarah, died in a terrible car accident 2 years ago. It happened so suddenly, without any warning whatsoever. One moment, she was here with us, laughing and smiling and being the amazing mother she always was. The next moment, she was gone forever, just like that. In an instant, our entire world changed completely. That day changed absolutely everything in our lives. That day changed my entire existence. That day changed Emma's life forever, too. She lost her mother, the person who understood her illness better than anyone. I suddenly became both mother and father to a child with a life-threatening heart condition. I had to figure out very quickly how to work enough hours to pay all the constantly mounting bills while also taking care of a seriously sick child, who needed constant attention, care, and supervision. It wasn't, still is the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. When Sarah died, we desperately needed a new home. The apartment we'd been renting was too small and far too expensive for my single income. I saved every penny I could from my 2 jobs. I worked countless extra hours and overtime shifts. Eventually, I had just enough money to buy an old, run-down house. It wasn't much to look at, I'll admit that freely, but it was ours. We finally had a place we could call home, a place where Emma could feel safe and loved and protected from the world. The house is old, very, very old. The paint on the outside walls is badly fading and dull. The color has faded to a sad, grayish beige that looks neglected and unloved. The wooden fence around our small yard has broken pieces sticking out in different directions. Some entire sections are completely falling down and rotting away. The grass in our yard has ugly brown patches where the old sprinkler system doesn't reach properly anymore. The whole property looks a little sad and worn out from many years of not being properly maintained by the previous owners. I know the house needs a lot of work. I see it every single day when I come home exhausted from my job. Every single time I pull into the driveway and look at my house, I think about fixing it up. I think about repainting it a beautiful, fresh color. I suggest repairing the fence so it looks nice and welcoming. I think about making the grass green and lush and beautiful, but then I remember the never-ending bills stacked on my kitchen table. I remember that Emma needs her expensive medicine. I remember that she needs regular doctor appointments and frequent hospital visits. I remember that I have to make an impossible choice. I have to choose between fixing up my house to look pretty and keeping my daughter alive. There really is no choice when you put it that way. Emma comes first. Every single time, without exception. Emma's life is infinitely more important than the appearance of my house. So the paint stays faded and peeling. The fence stays broken and falling down. The grass stays brown and patchy in places. But my daughter stays alive and as healthy as possible. And that's all that matters to me in this world. I did not think anyone in our neighborhood would care very much about how my house looked. I thought neighbors just lived their own lives and didn't worry too much about other people's properties. People would understand that I was doing my absolute best with limited resources. I thought surely people would see me working 2 jobs and rushing home to care for my daughter and realize I was stretched to my limits. I was very, very wrong about all of that. One ordinary Tuesday afternoon, in February, I was home for a brief period between my 2 jobs. I had 2 precious hours before I needed to leave for my night shift at the store. I was lying on the couch desperately trying to get some much-needed rest when there was a sharp, loud knock on my front door. I dragged myself up and opened the door. Standing on my small porch was a woman I'd never seen before. She was tall and thin, with a rigid posture that seemed almost military. She looked to be somewhere in her 50s. She wore expensive clothes that cost more than my entire week's salary from both jobs combined. Her jewelry looked very expensive and genuine, not costume jewelry, but the real thing. Her hair was perfectly styled, as if she had just stepped out of a high-end beauty salon. Her face looked cold, hard, and completely unfriendly. She had the kind of face that looked like it had never smiled genuinely in her entire life. "Mr. Martinez," she said sharply, without any friendly greeting, or even a simple smile. "I am Patricia Hawkins. I am the president of our Neighborhood Homeowners Association, the HOA. We need to discuss your property immediately. This cannot wait any longer." I invited her inside, even though something about her manner made me deeply uncomfortable. I offered her coffee, trying my best to be polite and friendly. I honestly did not know what was wrong. I had no idea what she wanted to discuss. I definitely did not know that this cold woman was about to completely destroy the next 3 months of my life and nearly kill my daughter. "Your house is not in compliance with HOA standards," Mrs. Hawkins said in an ice-cold voice, not even acknowledging the coffee I'd offered her. "The paint color is unapproved and unacceptable. The fence is in poor, deteriorating condition. The landscaping is completely inadequate and below community standards. This property is bringing down the entire neighborhood's value. Everyone's property values are being negatively affected by your blatant neglect." I tried very carefully to explain my situation to her. I told her in detail about Emma's serious heart condition. I told her that Emma needs extremely expensive medicine and very frequent doctor visits just to stay alive. I told her that I work 2 full-time jobs and I'm doing my absolute best with the money I have available. I explained as clearly as I could that I simply cannot afford to paint the house or repair the fence right now, because literally all my money goes to Emma's life-saving medical care. Mrs. Hawkins listened to my entire explanation without any visible change in her cold, hard expression. When I finished talking about my daughter's serious life-threatening health condition, she simply stood up from the couch without another word. "The rules are the rules, Mr. Martinez," she said coldly and very firmly. "Everyone in this neighborhood has agreed to maintain certain standards when they purchase their homes. Those standards do not have exceptions for anyone, regardless of personal circumstances. I strongly suggest you start making the required repairs immediately. I will be sending you a formal notice in writing." Then she simply walked out of my house without another word. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't wish Emma well. She just left her expensive heels clicking on my worn porch. 3 days later, an official-looking letter arrived in my mailbox from the HOA. It was printed on fancy letterhead and looked very legal and threatening. The letter stated that I had exactly 30 days to paint my house an approved shade of beige from their color palette. It said I had to repair my fence to an acceptable condition according to their standards. It said I had to make my yard look neat, attractive, and well-maintained. If I did not complete all of these things within 30 days, the letter stated clearly there would be substantial fines. There would be legal action taken against me. There would be court proceedings that could result in liens on my property. I called several local contractors to get price quotes for the work, hoping desperately to find someone affordable. The very cheapest quote I received from any contractor was $4,000. $4,000. That was more than 1 entire month of my combined salary from both of my jobs put together. And that was just for painting the house and doing basic fence repairs. It didn't include any new landscaping or other yard improvements Mrs. Hawkins wanted. I didn't have $4,000. I had $400 in my entire savings account, and that money was specifically being saved for Emma's medicine in case of an emergency. I sent a detailed letter back to the HOA, explaining my difficult situation as clearly as I possibly could. I explained again about Emma's medical condition and her expensive needs. I explained that I was working 2 jobs and doing my very best. I asked very politely if we could make some kind of arrangement or payment plan. I could do the work slowly over several months as I saved money. I could pay a reduced fee. We could work something out together like reasonable people. The answer came back as a firm and ice-cold no. Mrs. Hawkins sent another letter, this time even more threatening than the first. This time, she wasn't asking or requesting anymore. She was demanding and commanding. She said the repairs had to be completed within 60 days, or the HOA would take immediate legal action against me. She said they would seek large fines and penalties. She said they would take me to court and pursue all legal remedies available to them. I was absolutely terrified. I didn't have the money. I couldn't possibly do what she was demanding. I felt trapped and helpless. Then something strange and deeply hurtful started happening in our neighborhood. People who lived around us started treating Emma and me very differently. Neighbors who used to wave hello when I came home tired from work now deliberately looked away when they saw us. People who used to stop and smile and chat for a few minutes now had cold, unfriendly faces and walked quickly past us. Children who used to play with Emma in the neighborhood now avoided her completely. When Emma tried to join other children who were playing in the community park, their parents would immediately call them away the moment they saw Emma approaching. It was heartbreaking to watch. I slowly realized what was happening. Mrs. Hawkins had been talking about us to everyone in the neighborhood. She had been spreading stories and gossip about us to all the neighbors. She had told them that I was a bad neighbor who was deliberately ruining the neighborhood. She had told them that I was destroying everyone's property values. She had told them that I didn't care about my home or the community at all. She had spread lies and ugly rumors about us throughout the entire neighborhood. She had turned everyone against us. Nobody knew the real truth. Nobody knew that I was working myself to exhaustion at 2 jobs. Nobody knew that I was sacrificing my own sleep, health, and comfort for my daughter. Nobody knew that I was doing absolutely everything possible within my limited means to keep my daughter alive. Nobody cared about learning the truth. They just believed whatever Mrs. Hawkins told them. They chose to believe her lies, instead of taking 5 minutes to ask me what was really happening in my life. The social isolation was actually worse than the threat of court. Seeing Emma getting hurt because other children wouldn't play with her anymore was breaking my heart into a million pieces. She was just an innocent, seriously sick 8-year-old child, and people were treating her like she had done something terrible and wrong. She hadn't done anything wrong. She was a victim of circumstances beyond her control. She was suffering from a serious medical condition that wasn't her fault. And instead of receiving compassion and kindness from our community, she received cold rejection and casual cruelty. Emma would come home from school and ask me, with confusion in her voice, why nobody wanted to play with her anymore. She would ask me why Mrs. Patterson, who used to bake cookies for her, was now avoiding us completely. She would ask me why children at the park ran away from her. She would ask me with tears in her eyes why people didn't like us anymore. I honestly didn't know what to tell her. How could I possibly explain adult cruelty and prejudice to a child who was already suffering so much? How could I explain to an 8-year-old that people were being mean to her just because her father couldn't afford to fix his house? I started taking Emma to a different park, much farther away from our neighborhood, because I simply could not bear to see the hurt on her face when she realized other children wouldn't play with her. I started keeping her home more often, finding excuses why we couldn't go outside, because every time we went out, I could see the rejection and harsh judgment in people's eyes. It was like we had become invisible, like we had become social outcasts, like we had done something terrible and shameful when all we'd done was try to survive. I watched my daughter become quieter and more withdrawn. I watched her smile less and less. I watched her lose the joy and natural energy that had always defined her personality. I watched her become sad, depressed, and emotionally shut down. The stress of the social isolation was affecting her both emotionally and physically. Her heart episodes started happening much more frequently. The cardiologist told me during one visit that it was very likely because of the increased stress and emotional trauma she was experiencing. The doctor said that stress was making her heart condition significantly worse. For 3 long, agonizing months, I carried the crushing weight of this pressure on my shoulders every single day. I was working 2 exhausting jobs. I was caring for a seriously sick child with a life-threatening condition. I was watching my daughter become increasingly sad and isolated from the world. I was desperately trying to figure out how to pay for house repairs I absolutely could not afford. I was dealing with the deep pain of being rejected and judged by my own community. I felt completely alone in the entire world. I felt like nobody understood what I was going through. I felt like nobody cared about us at all. We were forgotten and abandoned. I started to lose hope for the first time. I started to think about moving away and starting over somewhere else. I started to think that maybe Mrs. Hawkins was right about me. Maybe I was a bad neighbor. Maybe I was a failure as a father. Maybe I didn't deserve to live in this neighborhood. Then the court summons arrived in my mailbox. The official summons stated that Mrs. Hawkins and the HOA were taking me to court. They were suing me for violation of community standards. They wanted the court to order me to make all the repairs immediately. They wanted the court to fine me substantial amounts of money. They wanted the court to force me to obey all the HOA rules or face even worse consequences, including possibly losing my home. I was absolutely terrified. I couldn't afford a lawyer to represent me. The court would definitely side with Mrs. Hawkins because she seemed powerful and official and wealthy. I thought I was going to lose everything I'd worked so hard for. But then something unexpected happened. Mr. Thompson called me completely out of the blue. He was a lawyer who had somehow heard about my case from someone in the community. He said he believed strongly in justice and fairness. He said he would help me for a greatly reduced fee that I could actually afford. For the first time in 3 long months, I felt genuine hope. Mr. Thompson prepared my case very carefully and thoroughly. He gathered all of Emma's extensive medical bills and records. He documented my demanding work schedule. He collected solid evidence showing how hard I was trying to maintain my house despite my severe financial difficulties. The court date was set for a Friday morning. That Thursday night before court, I could not sleep at all. I kept thinking about what would happen the next day. I was simultaneously terrified and hopeful. Friday morning finally came. I helped Emma put on her nicest dress, a simple but pretty one Sarah had bought her before she died. Emma was nervous and scared. "Daddy, will the mean lady be there?" she asked me with worry in her voice. "Yes, sweetheart," I said honestly, "but the judge will listen to our side too. The judge will be fair and will hear the truth." We drove to the courthouse together. The building was big, impressive, and intimidating. It had high ceilings and marble floors. Everything echoed as we walked through the hallways. Emma held my hand tightly. Her small hand was shaking. We found Mr. Thompson waiting for us in the hallway outside the courtroom. He knelt down to Emma's level and smiled kindly at her. He told me to stay calm during the hearing. He told Emma that if she felt too stressed or sick at any point, we could leave the courtroom for a few minutes to let her rest. Emma nodded seriously. She understood what was at stake. We walked into the courtroom together. The courtroom was surprisingly full of people. I recognized many of our neighbors sitting in the gallery. Some of them looked at us with what seemed like sympathy. Some looked away uncomfortably. Some looked angry and judgmental. Mrs. Hawkins sat prominently in the very front row, wearing an expensive navy blue suit. Her jewelry looked extremely expensive, probably worth more than my car. 3 other HOA board members sat beside her. They all looked stern and unfriendly. Emma and I sat in the back with Mr. Thompson. I could see Emma pressing her small hand to her chest, a sign she was getting nervous and stressed. Her heart was already acting up. "Stay strong, sweetheart," I whispered to her gently. "I love you so much." The judge entered the courtroom. His name was Judge Morrison. He looked kind and fair, with gentle eyes. I felt a small spark of hope. "This is the case of Martinez versus Pine Valley Homeowners Association," Judge Morrison announced clearly. "Is this correct?" Both sides confirmed it was. Mrs. Hawkins stood up first. She spoke in a loud, confident voice that filled the courtroom. "Your Honor, Pine Valley is a distinguished neighborhood with high standards that all residents agreed to when they purchased their homes. Mr. Martinez has repeatedly ignored our reasonable requests. He refuses to maintain his property according to the standards everyone else follows." She presented many photographs of my house from various angles. She pointed at everything wrong: the peeling paint, the broken fence, the brown patches in the grass. "This property brings down everyone's property values," she said dramatically. We sent multiple letters. We gave him extensions and extra time. Mr. Martinez has refused to cooperate with us in any way. She sat down, looking extremely satisfied with herself. I felt my face burning with embarrassment. People in the courtroom were looking at me like I was a terrible person who didn't care about my home. Then it was my turn to speak. My legs felt weak and shaky as I stood up. I looked at Emma for strength and courage. "Your Honor," I began, and my voice was shaking with emotion. "I'm not trying to be a bad neighbor to anyone." I took a deep breath. "But my daughter Emma has a very serious heart condition that she's had since birth." I could feel tears starting to come to my eyes, but I forced myself to continue. "Emma's medical treatments cost thousands of dollars every single month," I continued, my voice getting stronger. "I work 2 full-time jobs. My wife passed away 2 years ago in a car accident. I'm raising Emma completely alone." I gestured toward Emma sitting in the back. "I have to make an impossible choice between painting my fence and buying my daughter's life-saving medicine. Emma's life comes first." It has to. I sat down, my hands trembling. Judge Morrison looked at Emma with very gentle, kind eyes. "Young lady, would you like to come up here and tell me about your condition?" he asked softly. Emma stood up slowly and walked to the front. Her voice was small, but surprisingly clear. "I have a serious heart problem, Your Honor," Emma said. "Sometimes it beats way too fast, and I can't breathe. Sometimes it skips beats. My daddy works 2 jobs because of me and my medicine." Some people in the courtroom shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some people looked genuinely sad, but Mrs. Hawkins did not look moved at all. Her face remained cold and hard. She stood up again quickly. "Personal problems do not excuse clear violations of community rules," she said sharply. "If we make exceptions for one person, where does it end? The rules exist for everyone." The hearing continued for 2 long hours. Mr. Thompson showed extensive medical bills. He showed my exhausting work schedule. Mrs. Hawkins's lawyer showed more and more photographs of my house. Other neighbors were called to testify against me. They talked about how my house looked bad and made the neighborhood less attractive. Throughout all of this, Emma sat quietly in her seat, but I could see she was getting increasingly stressed. Her hand kept moving to her chest. Her face was getting very pale. The constant arguing and tension were making her physically sick. I held her hand gently, trying to comfort her. Then Mrs. Hawkins did something unforgivable. She pointed directly at Emma with an accusing finger. "If Mr. Martinez cannot handle the responsibilities of home ownership, maybe he should move to a cheaper neighborhood," she said cruelly and loudly. "And this child is clearly learning to manipulate people by using her illness to get sympathy." I jumped to my feet immediately. "Don't you dare call my daughter a liar," I shouted. "She is really sick. This is her life." Judge Morrison told me firmly to sit down, but Mrs. Hawkins kept going. Her voice got even louder and meaner. She actually stepped closer to where Emma was sitting. "People like you drag down entire neighborhoods," she screamed at me. "You're teaching this child to manipulate people with sob stories." Emma started crying. Her breathing became fast and very strange. She was having a heart episode right there in the courtroom. I rushed to her side immediately. "Sweetheart, look at me. Breathe slowly. Nice and slow." But Mrs. Hawkins actually followed us. She kept yelling. She kept attacking us verbally. She would not stop being cruel and vicious. Then something inside her completely snapped. Years of anger and hatred exploded out of her, months of frustration. It all came together in one moment of pure, violent rage. Mrs. Hawkins actually lunged toward Emma with her hands raised. Her face was twisted with fury. "I am sick and tired of this manipulation," she screamed. I threw myself between them to protect my daughter, but Mrs. Hawkins's momentum was too strong. Her elbow struck Emma directly in the chest, right over her fragile heart. Emma gasped loudly and fell backward. Her hands clutched desperately at her chest. Her face went white, then a terrifying gray color. Her breathing became rapid and extremely shallow. Her lips turned a frightening shade of blue. "Emma," I screamed, catching her as she fell. "Someone call 911 right now. She's having a cardiac episode." The courtroom fell into complete, shocked silence. Everyone just stared in horror. Mrs. Hawkins stood frozen in place. The rage on her face was slowly replaced by dawning horror as she realized what she'd done. "Get away from her," I roared at Mrs. Hawkins. "You've done enough damage. Get away from my daughter." Judge Morrison immediately called for medical assistance. The bailiff radioed urgently for an ambulance. Emma was getting worse by the second. Her heart was racing dangerously fast. Could feel it under my hand. She was barely conscious. Her eyes were rolling back. I held my daughter as close as I could. "Hold on, baby girl. Help is coming. Please, hold on. Please don't leave me." 3 minutes passed. 3 absolutely agonizing minutes that felt like 3 hours. I counted every single second while holding my suffering daughter in my arms. Her heart was failing. Her breathing was almost gone. I genuinely thought I was losing her forever. Then suddenly, The heavy courtroom doors burst open with a thunderous crash that echoed through the room. Military police officers poured into the courtroom. Their boots echoed loudly against the marble floor. They wore crisp, perfect uniforms. They moved with precision and absolute authority. There were 5 of them total. The lead officer was a tall woman with silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She strode directly to the front of the courtroom with purpose. Colonel Sarah Martinez, United States Army Judge Advocate General's Corps, she announced in a voice that commanded complete attention and respect. I understand there has been an assault on a minor child in this courtroom. My eyes went wide with shock. Martinez, that was my last name, but I had never seen this woman before in my entire life. The colonel's stern expression softened considerably when she saw Emma and me on the floor. Are you David Martinez? She asked, kneeling down beside us. Yes, ma'am, I said, confused and desperate. But who are you? How did you know to come here? My daughter needs medical help right now. Your brother Michael is currently stationed at Fort Campbell, the colonel explained quickly. When he heard what was happening to you and Emma, he contacted me immediately and asked me to help. He was very worried about both of you. My brother Michael. I hadn't spoken to him in over a year because I'd been so busy just trying to survive. He had somehow found out about my troubles. He had sent help when I needed it most, desperately. Colonel Martinez knelt down to Emma's level with genuine concern in her eyes. Hello, sweetheart. I'm Colonel Sarah Martinez. Help is here now. You're going to be safe. Emma's breathing calmed down. Seeing the uniformed officers made her feel safer and more protected. The colonel stood up and turned to face Mrs. Hawkins, who had turned deathly pale. Patricia Hawkins, you are under arrest for assault on a minor child, child endangerment, and disturbing the peace in a federal courthouse, Colonel Martinez said officially and formally. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Federal courthouse. Mrs. Hawkins squeaked in shock. This building handles both state and federal cases, the colonel explained calmly. Assaulting a child in any courthouse is automatically a federal offense. As Colonel Martinez continued reading Mrs. Hawkins her legal rights, the military police officers quickly secured the scene. One of them was a young medic in uniform. I'm Corman Johnson, he said kindly to Emma, kneeling beside her. Honey, let me take a look at you. I'm going to help you feel better, okay? He quickly and skillfully assessed Emma's condition. He used special medical equipment from his bag. He radioed for additional medical support. Within minutes, civilian paramedics arrived through the courtroom doors. They brought oxygen equipment and other medical supplies. They started treating Emma immediately. They put monitoring equipment on her chest. They worked quickly and expertly. The atmosphere in the courtroom changed instantly and dramatically. What had been complete despair and terror was suddenly transformed into hope. Justice was happening right before everyone's eyes. Mrs. Hawkins was led away in handcuffs. Her expensive suit couldn't hide what she really was, a bully who had finally gone too far and hurt an innocent child. Judge Morrison called for order in his courtroom. This court will recess immediately, he announced firmly. We will reconvene after the child receives proper medical attention. At that time, we will address both the original HOA dispute and the new criminal charges against Mrs. Hawkins. As Emma was carefully placed on a stretcher by the paramedics, she was breathing much better than before. The oxygen was helping. She reached out weakly for my hand. Daddy, the army lady helped us, she whispered. Yes, sweetheart, I said, tears streaming down my face. Sometimes help comes exactly when we need it most. At the hospital, Emma's condition improved steadily and quickly. The emergency room doctor told me that the stress and the physical attack had triggered a severe heart episode, but with proper treatment, she was going to be fine. The doctor pulled me aside privately and spoke seriously. He told me that Emma was very, very lucky. He said that if the paramedics had arrived even 1 minute later than they did, The outcome could have been much worse, possibly fatal. He said that Emma's young heart was strong enough to survive the trauma, but only because help arrived so quickly. He said that Colonel Martinez and the military police had literally saved my daughter's life. While Emma slept peacefully in her hospital bed with monitors beeping softly, I sat beside her and watched her breathe. I held her small hand very gently and cried tears of gratitude and overwhelming relief. I had almost lost her. I had almost lost the single most important person in my entire life. But she had survived. She was going to be okay. Colonel Martinez visited us early the next morning. She looked professional and official in her military uniform, but her eyes showed genuine compassion and kindness. She brought me coffee and sat down in the chair next to me. Mrs. Hawkins has been charged with several serious federal offenses, she explained. Assault on a minor, child endangerment, and disturbing the peace in a federal courthouse. These are very serious charges with significant prison time attached. She paused and looked at me with sincere kindness in her eyes. The HOA case against you has been completely dismissed, she continued. Judge Morrison dismissed it immediately after Mrs. Hawkins was arrested. He said that what she did was not only inexcusable, but criminal. There will likely be a substantial civil lawsuit as well, which means you may be able to receive financial compensation for damages and emotional harm. She paused again, then smiled slightly. More importantly, she said, your brother Michael is being granted emergency military leave by his commanding officer. He requested it as soon as he heard what happened, and his commanders approved it immediately because this is considered a serious family emergency situation. He'll be here tomorrow morning to be with you and Emma. He wanted me to tell you that he's sorry he hasn't checked on you sooner. He said that family always looks out for family, no matter how far apart they might be. I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. For so long, for 3 terrible months, I had felt like I was fighting the entire world completely alone. I had been trying desperately to protect Emma and keep our lives together, all by myself. I had thought that nobody cared about us at all. But now I knew the truth. I wasn't alone. My brother loved me and cared about us. Good people existed in the world. Justice was real. I keep thinking about what would have happened if you hadn't arrived exactly when you did, I said to the colonel, my voice shaking. In that courtroom, in those 3 minutes. If you had been even a few minutes late, Emma might have ... I couldn't finish the sentence. The thought was too horrible to say out loud. But we did arrive in time, Mr. Martinez, she said gently but firmly. Sometimes justice takes time, but it does come eventually. You never gave up fighting for your daughter, and that matters more than anything. You showed real courage and real love. Emma is incredibly lucky to have a father like you. Emma opened her eyes and saw Colonel Martinez sitting next to her hospital bed. Her small face lit up with recognition and gratitude. Is the mean lady gone? Emma asked in a small, worried voice. Yes, sweetheart, I said, sitting carefully on the edge of her bed and holding her hand. She can't hurt us anymore. She's in police custody now. She's going to face serious consequences for what she did to you. Colonel Martinez added, she's facing federal criminal charges. Emma, she will be punished by the law for assaulting you. Emma nodded slowly, processing this information. Then she looked at Colonel Martinez, with a wisdom in her young eyes that seemed far beyond her 8 years. The bad things don't win, Emma said quietly. It wasn't a question or a hope. It was a simple statement of absolute truth and faith. Colonel Martinez smiled warmly and genuinely at my brave daughter. That's absolutely right, Emma. Good people will always fight for what's right. And good always wins over evil in the end. You and your daddy are good people, and you both deserve to be treated with kindness and respect. Emma smiled for the first time in many, many weeks. Her smile was bright and real and full of hope and life. It was honestly the most beautiful smile I had ever seen. It was the smile of a child who had survived something terrible and come out the other side stronger. The very next day, Emma was released from the hospital. The doctor said she needed to rest and avoid stress, but she was going to be perfectly fine. We drove home slowly and carefully, making sure Emma was comfortable every moment of the trip. I held her hand the entire way back. When we turned onto our street, I literally could not believe my eyes. I had to blink several times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating or dreaming. The entire neighborhood was in our front yard and all around our house. Dozens and dozens of people were working together in perfect harmony and unity. Some were carefully painting the house in a beautiful, approved shade of beige,